Hi everyone, I'm Emma, author of upcoming book Milk. Check out the description for more information about that. And this is Emma Rosen Books. Today's video I wanted to do something a little bit different. Up until recently I was a teacher, I was a secondary school biology teacher. And I wanted to make a video kind of about that experience. So I thought it'd be interesting to look at the pros and cons to it because there's certainly both. As I said before in these videos, I've left the profession to focus on my writing career, so there's no ill will. It's a profession I may well go back to at some point. But yeah, here are 5 pros and cons to teaching. Number 1, school holidays. There is no doubt that having 12 weeks off, I think it's 12 weeks, is a massive benefit. As a parent of 3 children, it is so useful to not have to worry in the holidays of who's going to look after the kids, trying to sort out all that childcare, because I know I'm off. Even if you're not a parent, well great, you get all that time, it's brilliant. On the other hand, that tends to be one of the first criticisms you get when you say that you're a teacher is, oh yeah, enjoying the time off. You get a bit of a perception from those around you that you don't work particularly hard, that you're off work a lot. And I can understand why, having previously, before I was a teacher, I worked in other jobs where you get a normal amount of time off. So I do totally understand that point of view, and as I say, it's a big benefit, but it is frustrating when people, think that you don't work. But what you have to remember with teaching is that the big con in that is that all of the work, a year's worth of work, is put into the 195 days that you are at work. So yes, you do get the time off, but therefore all of that stuff that might have been done in that time is pushed into term time. Of course, an awful lot of teachers do work during the holidays. I have done. You always have to do a certain amount, but you can get away with pushing things into term time, a certain amount of stuff. Lots and lots of teachers do go in for a few days, several days over each holiday to go and sort out the classrooms, get the paperwork together, use school resources and things like that. But as I say, other people do push it into term time. What you end up with is this kind of full-on term time where you're burnt out and you need the holidays to recover. And I don't necessarily think that that's a healthy way to work. All teachers I know basically become unlivable with by the time that the school holidays come round, because you're just so exhausted and just burnt out. So, it does definitely have its pros and cons. Number 2, kind of linked to that, is the workload. Now, I've worked in jobs where I felt like I didn't really have enough to do. And I like having a high workload. I respond really well to it. I find it really motivating. I hate not having enough to do. So for me, in a big way, the workload is great. I need a high workload. I thrive on it. I enjoy it. I used to love the fact that when I got up to go to work, it was, rather than feeling frustrated or bored, I hate being bored, it was like, yeah, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And the fact that you can't walk into that classroom if your lesson plan isn't ready and your resources aren't ready. Not that I've ever occasionally done that. But you've got to have things prepared. So there's no procrastinating, it's got to be done. End of story. I like that way of working. On the other hand, teaching workload is crazy. It's not uncommon for teachers to work 12-hour days plus. There are big problems constantly being reported about teachers overworking. There's a lot of schools that are putting effort into reducing teacher workload by making marking easier, by changing policies to try and reduce the load, by getting teachers to stay on site and work on site so they're not taking as much home. There are lots and lots of initiatives where they're trying to get teachers to work 9 to 5. Instead of what does happen, where teachers work extremely long hours and have to take work home and work in the weekends and all of this, which adds to that whole thing of being burnt out. It is very, very tough. Certainly there have been many times in my teaching career where I've felt extremely overworked, and when I'm up till midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, marking things, if you bear in mind that for each lesson you've got to plan a lesson, do the lesson. And marking, now you're not going to mark a set of books every lesson, but a set of books can take you 3 hours to mark. A set of papers can take you 5 hours to mark, depending on exactly what it is you have to do and how closely you're marking it. You can see how 1 hour's worth of teaching is actually a lot more when it's expanded, and so therefore your 4 or 5 hours of teaching during the day is actually more like 8 hours, possibly plus. Yeah, so it generally does end up being quite a high workload. So again, you know, everything is positives and negatives with teaching, it really is. Number 3, the professional status. It is great as a teacher having a professional status. You are a professional. You get to sign people's passports. You can enter the profession when you're 21, 22, so that's really awesome. Also, everybody knows what a teacher is, so you say to somebody, I'm a teacher. That's, you know, people have a perception of what you do. And that is really great to have that status, that level of understanding. Everybody really, or most people, have a shared experience of what teaching in schools are like, so it kind of makes you part of that culture. And that's really great. But on the other hand, some people argue that teachers do not have a professional status, and that's for a few things. Firstly, teaching in the UK, at least, I don't know about elsewhere, does not currently have a professional body. We did have one, and it was disbanded, although it was government run anyway. That's called the GTC, the General Teaching Council or something like that. Doesn't exist anymore. We have unions, which isn't really the same thing. And a lot of some teachers do take part in sort of action research, and it's a very reflective and critical profession, which is what it needs to be. But I think it would be good if teachers got more involved in the way that, say, doctors do, in keeping abreast of things, and, as I say, that kind of research and collaboration side of things. And some teachers do, but an awful lot don't, and I think that takes away from professional status as well. Really, teaching needs a professional body made up of teachers. Much as the unions are great, I think there is a need, because there are a lot of people that don't see teachers in the same light as lawyers, doctors, so on, and yet they should be. You know, you're talking about people who can teach 30 children, and the amount of different skills that you're doing during that time is crazy, and it's a degree level job. So I think that because that professional status is like this, that's a shame. So it would be great for steps to be taken to make teaching have the same professional status as other professions, what are seen as professions, because at the moment I don't think it has that. And number 4, creativity. I, as a creative person, loved the fact that I could have fun with what I was teaching. I've done loads of off-the-wall lessons. I used to write songs about biology stuff and teach the kids the songs that I'd made up, or, you know, come up with some strange idea and see if they'll go along with it. And I loved those kind of lessons. They were usually really fun. And also allowing the kids to be really creative, of course, it is brilliant. That kind of teaching is really great. But sometimes you do have constraints in that you've got time limits within a lesson. There's limits on what you can do. Obviously, there might be limits in terms of the students you have and how receptive they're going to be to certain ideas. These days, teaching, it seems to be getting a little more prescriptive, which also takes away from that. So it's a shame when you want to be creative and you've got kind of school policies that say within a lesson you have to do this, this and this, and you've got government policies that are saying that you've got to do this, this and this, and that impinges on the ability for a teacher to be creative and bring into a lesson their own personality and their own ideas of how to teach, and that you have to go along with, no, this is how this lesson is taught. I think that's a shame. So, you know, again, all of these things, as I've said so far, it's all about kind of that balance, and from day to day you might feel differently about them. We come to number 5. I want to start with the negative first. Number 5 is the kids. They drive you to distraction. Imagine having a class of somewhere between 20 and 30 children. they've all got different wants, needs, you know, whatever. Trying to think about all these children, where they're at, what they need, what you know about these different kids, if so-and-so can't sit with so-and-so, and so-and-so has this additional need, and you know, all these different things going on in the classroom at once, and your place within that. The kids that frustrate you because you know they can do better, the kids who are difficult, challenging, you know, there are so many things that would make it, working with children, you know, they never react how you think they're gonna. They are as frustrating, hard work, surprising, but they are amazing. And the biggest positive to teaching is the kids, without a doubt. I mean, I have been blown away by the kids that I teach more times than I care to say. From the kid that suddenly gets it when you're teaching something, and they're, oh, I understand. You finally managed to explain it a way that they understand and they get it. And it's like, yes, I did it. Or the child that goes off and does these extraordinary things. The things like children who maybe aren't that great at your subject, so for me science, and I'd never really seen them shine, and then you see them in a school production or you see them do something sporting and they are out of this world amazing. And then you find out that something they do in their personal life outside of the school is astounding, or they maybe have challenges in their life and the way they overcome them just like gets you of just wow. You just can't believe how these young people can surprise you in ways that you never thought possible. And when you have a lesson where, you know, you just see the incredibleness of these young people, it is the best. Getting the privilege to work with young people and try to help them fulfill their potential in life. I mean, it is by far and away the best thing about the job. Before I entered into teaching, I had 2 pieces of advice, and if anybody watching this is thinking about teaching, these are the best things that I heard when I was thinking about it. Number 1, you have to like working with young people, because they're your colleagues. You don't see other teachers. You see the children you work with all day, every day. So, you know, it's not about whether you get on with your colleagues or not, it's about whether you get on with the kids. So you have got to love working with young people. And number 2, it is the best job in the world and the worst job in the world. When you're having a bad day, it is the pits. You know, when you are feeling overworked, tired, it's very hard to be a teacher if you're ill. You know, you've got to be on form, really. And when you feel like you're not doing your best, you're affecting the lives of children, and that is hard. So yeah, you know, the bad days are bad, stressful, awful, you know, but the good days are out of this world. So you kind of have to come to it knowing that it's going to be like that. And I did my best for 10 years, including my training, and as I say, I'm moving on now. If anybody here watching this is thinking about going into teaching, then best of luck, and I hope you really enjoy it, and you know, you are so needed. And yeah, I hope you know, those of you who maybe aren't thinking about teaching, maybe have learnt a little bit about what it's like to be a teacher. Anyway, as I say, something a bit different today. Please comment below if you'd like to, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you all for my next one. Bye!